What's going on YouTube? I'm AJ and today I'm going to do an optic review, specifically a pair of optics from Gowutar, the A20R and the HHC17. So previously I was not familiar with the company Gowutar, but they had reached out to me, asked if I would be interested in reviewing any of their optics. And as I looked over their site and kind of saw the price point they were coming in, I wasn't really sure if it'd be a fit for the channel. So I kind of let the email sit for a couple weeks, but as I was closing out of their page, I caught a glimpse of their motto, and it kind of stuck with me. And what it basically said was, everyone deserves quality optics. And so as I thought about the price point and the improvements in red dot technology and manufacturing, it reminded me of back when I initially started with Holosun and nearly overlooked them coming in at nearly half the price point of Trijicon. So I got back to them. I asked for these two specifically. The A20R uses your traditional RMR footprint, full-size optic. The 17 uses the RMR CC footprint, so your more compact footprint. And to their credit, they had the optics out to me in less than a week. Now, full disclosure, the optics were sent free of charge for review. No stipulations were placed on what I would say during the review, good, bad, or otherwise. And no other money, goods, or services were exchanged. Upon arrival, the optics were packaged well, came with quite a few different mounting screw options. The overall fit and finish of the optics looks nice. The glass is clear. So with that said, let's take it over to the tabletop portion and get a closer look at the optics and also how it compares to some of their competitors. Alright, the Gowutar A20R are symbolizing the standalone 3MOA red dot. The video makes the dot look a little bit bigger than it actually is, but overall it's a fairly crisp dot as well. The housing itself is aluminum, finished in a fairly nice matte finish. Again, I don't love the branding on it, but it's not the end of the world. This one does not have the raised rear sight ledges like the smaller one does. The buttons are very tactile and easy to use on this piece. Also, we have a top-load battery. I really appreciate that this one uses a Torx key instead of Trigicon's little proprietary cross driver. The glass itself, pretty clear, and I was happy with the overall brightness adjustability with this piece. Compared to a full-size RMR Type 2, the surround is quite a bit thinner. The window is both larger and clearer. Next to a Trijicon HD, the window height is a little bit higher on the HD. However, the Gowutar actually appears a touch wider. The dot quality in glass is quite a bit nicer on the HD, but that's to be expected, as I do think it's the best red dot currently on the market overall. Compared to a Holosun 507, which has always been my go-to budget optic, the window is almost identical in size. It's a little bit clearer on the Holosun, but the surround on the Gowutar at the range made it a little bit quicker of an optic, so more of a hybrid where it felt a bit like a competition optic, but also not completely fragile like some of the other competition optics. Speaking of competition optics, of course we have the SRO. SRO has a fair bit larger window, most of which coming from overall height. The width is fairly comparable. Surprisingly, the glass quality is pretty comparable between the two as well. Compared to the recently reviewed Siley Chameleon, again, the Chameleon pretty well replicates the sight picture of an SRO. So both taller, a little bit wider, and the Siley's glass is pretty nice. Here it is next to the Siley Wolf EDG. The window size is fairly comparable on the two. I found at the range the Gowutar is actually quite a bit quicker for me. especially in transitions just to the thinner overall surround. And again, we'll bring in the Vortex Defender XL, which pretty well dwarfs it. All right, there you go. All right, so the Gowutar HHC17R. The R stands for the single red dot. In this, it kind of looks like a big circle on video. That's not an accurate portrayal of how the dot actually looks. It's actually a fairly crisp 3 MOA dot. The optic body itself is made of aluminum. It has a nice matte finish. The Gowutar logoing isn't my favorite. I would probably just block that out. I do appreciate that we have a side load battery. You can see how the optic punches just a little bit wider than what would be a traditional RMRCC or Holosun 507 or 407K, which does give you a little bit bigger window, which in a package like this, I actually really appreciate. The glass itself is fairly clear. You do have a little bit of blue tint, more so than a lot of the other more premium optics presently entering the market, but actually a fair bit clearer than the RMR Type 2s. The buttons are well done. They sit just a little bit proud and are easy to access. The brightness settings are actually very good, and even in bright Texas sunshine, I didn't have any issues getting the dot bright enough to use at a very comfortable level. Also back here, you have these couple raised portions which can be used as a makeshift backup iron sight. So overall, pretty well thought out little optic. Let's take a look at it compared to some of its competitors. The most obvious choice is going to be the Holosun 407K, which is also micro red dot. Window size is fairly similar. The Gowutar is actually a little bit larger of a window, though the Holosun takes a slight edge on window clarity. Both have the little backup iron sight feature in them. Both have side load batteries. And up to this point, the Holosun has been my favorite in this category, as it does offer a larger window than the comparable Trijicon. Here it is next to a full-size RMR Type 2. You can see that the surround on the Gowutar is quite a bit thinner. Obviously, it doesn't have the same level of protection that the Trijicon is going to offer. The glass is noticeably clearer on the Gowutar. Forgive the RMR being a little bit dirty, but when it comes to window size, because of the deck height, the Gowutar's window, despite being a smaller optic, actually appears or is functionally a little bit larger than what you're getting with the RMR. Now, when you don't consider the deck height and you go as deep as the RMR goes, they are about even. But as far as usable space, I would actually give a slight edge to the Gowutar. Now here it is compared to the Trijicon RMR HD. The HD actually does have a larger overall window. Holosun 507C. Again, slight edge to the Holosun, but the Holosun is a substantially larger optic overall, both in width and height. Here it is next to its full-size stablemate, the Gowutar A20. Again, the A20's window probably looks similar on video, but it's actually quite a lot larger on the A20. Glass clarity is very similar. Both have the 3 MOA dot. And because I have a sense of humor, here it is next to the Vortex Defender XL. Yeah. final thoughts on the Gowutar optics. So I was actually genuinely impressed with what they offered, especially considering the price point. It's rather interesting to me that now I can get what, at least so far, seems like a very solid optic for less than the price of a set of Trijicon HD night sights. From a shooting performance standpoint, both of the optics performed very well for their respective footprint sizes. The A20 on the full size worked somewhat like a hybrid between the Siley Chameleon, which is more of a competition optic, and the Holosun 507C, getting close to the performance of the Siley with a little bit more rugged overall build quality, more in line with the Holosun. The smaller one I actually really liked in comparison to the Holosun 407K, which I was previously running on this SIG, and simply because the window is slightly larger, but the overall footprint is not significantly increased. So for the time being, this optic is actually going to remain on this gun. Now, are these going to be the right optic for every gun, or something I would immediately go out and put on a duty gun? No, it's not, but it is very promising to see how good these optics are at a rather exceptional price point. And it's nice to see a good red dot option available, even for the more budget-minded enthusiasts. So I'll keep running them. If something goes wrong, something comes out of it, I'll let you guys know. But until then, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.